Hey friends, this is Joseph Maynor. So what I want to do in this video is I want to discuss the gap before Zen and the gap after Zen, kind of like from my own perspective. And, somebody recently told me that my teachings are very complicated. I would say yeah, like yes and no. See, and I think in this video I'll explain like kind of like how that is resolved for you. Like taking my teachings to be complicated is, in a way, kind of a dependency on my point of view. Instead of realizing what I'm actually doing, is just consciously creating. So this is where, it's like you have to be careful about like your need to hitch your wagon to somebody, right? Like if you're kind of feminine and you're focused on relation, you're looking for somebody else to tell you what reality is, or you're more masculine, you're more like a creator, right? You're more like somebody who's just putting it out there, seeing what lands, what doesn't land, and it's all seen as kind of like an artistic creation, right? So instead of the truth that's been laid down by some kind of external authority that you're hitching your wagon to. So there's a little bit of the difference between the feminine and the masculine here, although there's sneaky ways that this can be played with in all kinds of various different ways in collective and individual egoic systems. So, but that aside, let me just explain kind of what my view is. I've laid down like, certain benchmarks, as to what I think development work consists in. So I talk about truth, I talk about love, I talk about beauty, I talk about wisdom, and I break it down this way just to organize my own insights. Now, my insights are just what I loop on. They're not necessarily my beliefs. So see, what you loop on is not necessarily what you believe. Right? This idea that what you loop on is what you believe pins you. You're trying to pin everybody down to a belief, right? But the reality is, just because somebody loops on something doesn't mean that's what they believe. It's just a pattern that shows up in their, in their communication, to the extent that they're providing insights. So, and all of us involved in spirituality are doing so, right? So, but I think it's an overgloss to try to hold somebody to some kind of belief indefinitely. Like, oh, you said this, that means that you believe it. Not necessarily, man. I may have like an insight in the moment that like 2 seconds later, I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? So just because somebody says something doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they believe, because they may have a further kind of contemplation about that. Like everybody assumes that like when you say something, it should be like infinite. You know what I mean? Like you said it forever. Not necessarily. I mean, when you write a paper in college, right? The final draft doesn't come out in the first instance, right? You have to. Nobody likes the sausage making process. It's almost like the sausage making process or the drafting process is avoided, and it's kind of assumed like, okay, when you say something, it should be perfect. No. Actually, when you say something in your final draft, that still isn't perfect. Right? That's just another event or happening in the world. Right? So you have to become a little bit more humble about your own creation and about other people's creation. And kind of like, I mean, on the one hand, you don't want people to post crap, but on the other hand, if you're expecting people to post like world-class insights all the time, I think that's also, right, not, that's too high of a standard for most people. Because there's a lot of people like me who are very improvisational, and I really kind of avoid that mentality, that curated mentality, like, okay, everything that has to be, everything posted has to be perfect. But then also, doing this for long enough, I do have my own ideas that I loop on. So what I want to do in this video is, just as a natural kind of extension of my last two videos, is to explain what I think comes before Zen and what comes after Zen. That's my goal in this video. So I can still create a thesis statement. I've thought about this. And this comports with basically what I've looped on in many of my prior videos. So, okay, friends, so just give me 1 second. I'll come back and we'll continue on. Just give me one. All right, friends, welcome back. So I think the key concept in this video is the difference between creation and the creator. The difference, or the duality, or the dichotomy between creation and the creator. And notice that creation is passive. Creation, I'm not involved in creation. Creation is happening all around me. But no, you're a creator, right? You definitely show up in the world as creator. So you're denying this kind of like creator aspect to creation, and you're really not looking at the duality between creation and creator. Creation, creator, passive, active. You don't know how to make sense of this dichotomy or duality. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe this is just my own point of view being pushed on you. And people will say that too. But this is key to understanding how I see the difference between the before Zen and after Zen. So what I want to do in this video is I want to fill that gap. All right. So, before Zen, you're beholden to truth. And you're beholden to feminine love. Okay, so truth, feminine love. Because I want to argue that Zen is more like masculine love. So let me explain this. So truth is like, there's one right answer. Something has it. You need to learn it. Sit down, shut up, go away if you don't agree with me. Okay. And then you have feminine love, which is that it's more of a Jungian integration. Feminine love is more like, no, truth comes from my insecurity, my need to control you, my need to project superiority onto you because now I got to beat you, right? Like I have to win. Like the world is it's a scary place of survival, and everybody's trying to get one over on somebody else, and right. And so feminine love is about, I got to choose who I hitch my wagon to. And even in myself, I have to realize my own flaws and how I'm hitching my wagon to my own flaws, even in myself. So this is when you're integrating your shadow, right? You're looking at it like, oh, I'm doing all these nasty things that I'm accusing other people of doing too. Man, this light is just not doing what I want it to do. Welcome to reality, right? How's my lighting, by the way? I'm dealing with the natural lighting back here, and I'm also dealing with this. Why is this flickering on and off? Let me see. Sorry about this, guys. This is what happens when you depend on technology. Or even other people. Don't depend on anything, right? I mean, that's the lesson learned. Is that Murphy's Law? I don't know, right? Let me see. So there's too much. There we go. So I'm dealing with the natural lighting coming through my windows, and I'm also dealing with what you're trying to. Anyway, so it seems like truth has both a feminine and a masculine aspect to it. The feminine aspect of truth is God / it's more like Spinoza, like God / nature is the whole, and we should kind of accept everything that's going on Morality then becomes kind of an issue because if it's happening, it's good. So morality sort of drops out as a human concern, right? Masculine truth is more like Advaita Vedanta. Consciousness is the only thing that exists. The human still doesn't exist. People don't exist. Everything is Maya, and the only thing that's important is truth with a capital T, and that is me, right? So it's kind of a solipsistic, in a way they don't want to see it this way, but it kind of is. It turns out this way in practice. Okay, and so that's truth. That's the feminine and masculine aspects of truth, and that's kind of a game that's played over and over again. You see this all the time. People that are playing this game, they're limited to this game. They don't realize that, and they don't see like the further perspective. Because remember, when you're in a particular stage, the higher stage looks like a lower stage to you, right? And all you're really concerned about is shoring up your own ego, shoring up your own power, shoring up your own position in the moment. You're not looking at like, okay, I did some nasty shit too, like in the past, you know? It's like now I'm crying wolf and I'm saying, oh, you know, everybody is doing all this stuff to me. It's like, well, you did some shit to other people too. You know what I'm saying? So this is where like feminine love, like you move from like truth to feminine love, you realize, man, everybody can have temperamental moments, right? People try to hide this, you know. Sometimes they make a career out of hiding this. You don't even know who they are. They're seen like behind the scenes, and they're exerting their power kind of behind the scenes and avoiding any kind of actual showing up in the world. Well, that's kind of no way to live either, right? That's a very sneaky, right, way to survive and exercise power. I'm a fan of showing up in the world as yourself, right, as a creator. And if you're doing that, then you're honoring that with me. Like if you're honoring like conscious creation, creating things in the world where you're showing up as a creator in the world, man, that's what I think it's all about. Because this abstraction, it's a way to hide. You can spend a lot of years hiding. You can hide in the forest. You can hide in thought. You can hide in philosophy. You can hide in technology. Nobody knows what you look like. Nobody knows who you are, right? You're like this like person who's just sitting behind a computer, you know, kind of curating a life that way. That is not, right? In my opinion, that is not what you want to be. So in the way that you see this is that you reintegrate the human. So when you move into feminine love or the Carl Jung aspect, you reintegrate the human, because it's only the human that can recognize a limitation or a shadow, right? People who don't even reintegrate the human, they're not recognizing any kind of limitation. They're not recognizing any kind of shadow. All right. So this is the feminine aspect of love, which is that, yes, you've integrated the divine. You know, you've done some stuff to kind of get way out there and come way back in. You go way out and then you come way back in. But then when you express yourself as a finite perspective again, like when you get back into the finite perspective again, you realize I am not, like I have an ego too. Like if you don't even realize that you have an ego too, like you're like projecting this onto everybody else. Oh, everybody else has an ego. Everybody else is corrupt but me. Come on, man. That's just your ego. Everybody but me. Everybody else but me. Look at all these stupid people over here but me. Don't look at me. Look at all these stupid people over here. Right. I mean, you can do that up until a degree. And that's, I think that is the truth. That's the truth, kind of a masculine version of the truth, or like Advaita Vedanta, A version of the truth, or a version of the truth. Interesting, like pun. But it's like a pointing of the finger outward, even though you're trying to argue that you're not pointing the finger at all. It's like, no, you're pointing the finger outward constantly. It's always somebody else, right? Not you, not me. It's somebody else. So where you have to get to beyond this, and is this that complicated, right? Is this like super complicated? I don't think it's very complicated. So where you need to get to beyond this is that you have to reintegrate the human back into or the finite perspective back into your own experience and say, I do all this shit too myself. I do it all myself. I hide myself. I point the finger at somebody else. I use my power inappropriately. I play games. I'm not always nice. I'm not always like, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. All the things that you don't want to associate yourself with, right? You realize you do it too. And so, in my opinion, this is the feminine aspect of love. This is the first stage of love. So we move from masculine truth to feminine love, because love is higher than truth. Love requires truth, though. Right? So love requires... So love requires truth. But the feminine aspect of love is... It's not everybody else that's corrupt. I'm corrupt. And everybody else is corrupt too. And that's okay. That doesn't give you license to deny morality. It doesn't give you license to do nasty things necessarily. It just avoids you from the delusion of thinking that you're like this like pure white knight or pure saint, and everybody else is some kind of a demon or devil or somebody to be hurt. Just so that you can be seen in a certain kind of positive way. In a way, this is a very social, it's a very shallow kind of marketing perspective that you're not seeing. You think you're getting above this, right? But you're not. You're actually operating entirely within it. See? And so this is why I think, the stage before Zen, in my view, is Jungian psychology. So what I want to do in the last half of this video is I want to explain what I think the stage before Zen is and what I think the stage behind or beyond Zen is. Because like I said, I don't think Zen is the final stage. In my last two videos, I covered Zen. So I think this is a nice third video. So hang in there with me, guys. And this next part, I think, is going to explain. It's not very complicated, right? So just give me 1 second. All right, friends. So let's get very kind of linear here in this last 15 minutes of this video or less. I would say, like, it's very important from a truth perspective. There's a feminine aspect. So I look at it, let's just look at the map like this. Truth, love, beauty, wisdom. Okay, let's just look at it like that and set it up. So from a truth perspective, I see it like there's a feminine and a masculine aspect of truth. Why do you need truth? Well, all of this is going beyond the human. Right? So again, these are very high levels of spiritual enlightenment, development, where we're not talking about getting a job or, taking care of your finances or all of these kind of like tier 1 spiral dynamics, self-help stages. This is all very deep, high advanced, spiritual work here. And this is where, I have a different perspective than other people do. And the fundamental theme is, I think being a creator is more profound than being created. Okay? I know that sounds weird. And this will get into why, I think that there's something beyond what other people are missing here. So when it comes to truth, right? Yeah, you're beholden on your truth. You're looping on your truth. But the reality is that that's all a pretense. It's all a show. That's what you're creating. You're creating that to survive. You're creating that to be liked. You're creating that to be accepted, right? If you're not doing that, then you're going to be rejected, or you're going to be, you have to go and fend for yourself. So I like to say, like, empathy, you have to have an understanding of power to really have an understanding of empathy too. Because you can realize that everybody is a persona that's trying to pull something, off, for their own egoic interest. Sometimes it's linked to a collective aspect, sometimes it's linked to an individual aspect, or a combination thereof. And so the first instance is that you have to get to the point where you realize that you're doing this too. Right? You don't lack a human perspective. Right? All there is just human beings jockeying over power on some level. So when it comes to empathy, you kind of have to look at, like, well, shit, man, all of us have done something to somebody, right? I mean, you have to stop kind of white knighting yourself as being the saint who's sitting over everything. No, you're surviving. You're surviving by what you're looping on, ultimately, what you're attached to. That's how you're surviving. Okay. And you can become more conscious about what you're looping on and what you're attached to, which is basically what feminine love is about. It's realizing, man, shit, I'm this way that I don't even think I'm this way. I don't see my human. I don't see the devil side of myself. I don't see the exclusive side of myself, how I'm blocking somebody from expressing themselves, or how I'm controlling something or curating something. I'm not accepting that. Right? Well, why not? Why are you hiding that aspect of yourself, right? So the first aspect of feminine love is to stop hiding aspects of yourself. People should know what you look like as a human being when you're dealing with them. If I don't know what you look like, you're just somebody who I deal with online, man, I might as well be interacting with ChatGPT. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even ChatGPT would be better than that, because at least ChatGPT has a certain level of, I can tell ChatGPT, fuck you, go to hell, give me the answer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to do that to somebody online who I don't know what they look like, though, because there's a part of me that's going like, oh, there's a human being on the other end of this. And I actually don't do that to ChatGPT, but I'm just making a point. Like, man, if I don't even know what you look like, if you've never introduced yourself to me as a person, at least with an image, how the fuck do I know, like, how to relate with you? And then there's this idea, well, oh no, it should just be this kind of abstract, relation. No, like, nobody talks that way, nobody relates that way. Okay. So the first aspect of feminine love is reintegrating the human, doing actual shadow work, not fake displacement shadow work. You're just blaming everybody else for things that you don't want to accept in yourself. Okay. Now, masculine love is more like Zen. Masculine love is like, okay, I've done shadow work. I've reintegrated the human. I've done shadow work for a certain amount of time. And now I can see through all the metaphysics, even the Jungian psychology. I can see through that too. And I can say to myself, I can put this down, or I can pick it up too. Anything I can put down and I can pick up. So this is more like masculine love, because it's the ability to basically just become in a way, kind of a normal person, chop wood and carry water, and to understand what all these spiritual freaks are talking about. But on the other hand, too, realizing that this isn't the final stage, right? There's a stage that goes beyond this ultimately. But when you're at Zen or masculine love, you're going to be very kind of aware of what everybody else is doing, and what you're doing too. And you're going to be conscious of the fact that you're chopping wood and carrying water, right? You're just an individual who's operating in the world. Whether you call yourself a human, whether you call yourself divine, it kind of doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day. You can kind of see through those distinctions, but also not reject either one. So there's a wobble between the human and the divine that you accept. You're picking it up and you're putting it down. Now, the question becomes is what's beyond Zen, right? So I've kind of explained to you that, yeah, Jungian psychology is kind of before Zen, and then what's beyond Zen. So what I want to do in the last 5 minutes of this video is I want to give my take as to what I think is beyond Zen. So just give me 1 second. All right, friends. So going back to my super complicated model, we have truth, love, beauty, and wisdom. We've talked about feminine and masculine truth, feminine and masculine love. Now we're going to talk about feminine wisdom, which is the phase that I think goes beyond Zen. So feminine wisdom is what I call beauty, right? The beauty phase. Well, the first aspect of wisdom is actually beauty, but wisdom goes beyond this. But so the feminine beauty, the first feminine beauty stage would be realizing your ego as an ego, right? And seeing how you're using your ego to consciously create and play with a finite perspective. So this is like the first kind of artistic point of view, right? Where you realize that everything in a way is a play. So with Zen, you're looking at it like, okay, I've reintegrated the human, and I still have everything else underneath me, but you still kind of have this attitude of mu, like there's nothing to do, like you're just kind of like, you're shutting down this aspect of you as a creator. See, you're seeing yourself in a way as a nothing. See, this is the problem with Zen, is that you're seeing yourself as a nothing that's also creating, but you're not knowing how to join those into a kind of artistic play concept. But then when you go out into the world and you chop wood and carry water, you realize, no, like there's definitely a play aspect even within mu. So you're accepting that. You're accepting the feminine beauty concept, feminine play, feminine conscious creation. Like we're relating, like I said before, it's like it's hard to have empathy without understanding of power, because all of us are characters that are relating in a complex play from this perspective. Okay, feminine beauty, which I call stage emerald. And so Zen I call stage mauve. Jungian psychology I call stage teal. Advaita Vedanta I call stage coral. So I have videos on these as well. So are my developmental stages complicated? No, they're actually not. I specified them out very clearly. But the stage after Zen is to slough off this mu concept, slough off this kind of pragmatism or kind of empiricist point of view that there's nothing happening or something like that. Because you've been chopping wood and carrying water and you have all this stuff underneath you, you're going to realize that everything is a show. Everything is a play. Everything is a performance. So that's the other side of Zen. But it's feminine performance. It's performing with others, in relation to others. And then there's a masculine aspect of beauty, which is performing as an individual. So you can see how, like I said, Zen is not the final stage, but it's a high level. But as I see it, they're further stages. I don't think it's incredibly difficult, honestly. But I just wanted to make this video to kind of give you guys a little bit of like what I think comes before and what I think comes after Zen. So I know it's not a perfect video, but it's all I can do in 30 minutes with my energy, and my inspiration, and my time right now. So hopefully this turns out to be a good pointer, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.